Hello. The end of the last stream, the guy called me a Ben Shapiro wannabe with the speed reads because I was listening to videos at high speed, which isn't speed reading, but it's sort of related. But I didn't know Ben Shapiro did speed reading. I googled it and I found a satire article about speed reading bumper stickers. I think he was angry or something. It's a good example of how outreach is hard with a lot of people. Like, he just wasn't interested in reading books or articles or saying things that made much sense. Like, he seriously struggled just to share a link. He repeatedly failed to share the link and gave me incorrect information about it repeatedly. Like, so here, I told him just take the link and put a space before .com, which is what I did with my link. You can see it's the exact link with one space added. Oh. Okay. I don't, it's highlighting the YouTube thing. But anyways, yeah, you can see my link, just one space added. Then you go down to his link, and uh, he just completely changed the link. He added a space, he removed the HTTPS, he removed the .html from the end, he removed the word origins, he removed the number, he removed the hyphens. Like, it's just utterly mangled, and there's no way I could possibly guess the correct link from that. This is the link that he was intending. So you can see, like, missing number, missing HTML, missing word origin. He also kept saying arsonic, and then I tried to correct him, but he didn't seem to think he was wrong, but then he switched it to arsenic. Also, this link was supposed to be an explanation of the DEET thing, which he was talking about, except it literally doesn't mention DEET, it's about arsenic. There are a lot of issues with his thinking, but he didn't want to, practice thinking or work his way up or learn grammar or learn logic or something. He just wanted to say he was my daddy and that he'd debate me, except he's not actually going to do anything to debate me. He's not going to write a debating post about, what was wrong with one of my essays or something. He was doing something very common, which is ignoring me when I say he should do certain things. Like, I'm like, if you want to know more about that, you should read this book, and he just doesn't respond. And every time I'd recommend a book or suggest he learn something or do something, he would just completely ignore me and then say the next thing. And I don't know, I don't understand why people would be very interested if they're just going to ignore everything I say, but they would still want to talk to me in ways that just completely talk past me. Okay, close that. So I have to decide like a main activity to do today. I could respond to Kieran. Like, these things were both in comments. Let's see, what do I want to do? I think I might do the DD stuff. I figured out a zoom hotkey. You can like zoom in extra too with the scroll wheel. It moves super fast now if you're that zoomed in and you move your mouse. Um, This super depends on the meanings of fair and unfair, and also the grammar is like ambiguous. I'm sure the link has details, but it's really definition dependent. But what they're trying to do is attack certain ideas of like racially fair algorithms or something. It's like anti-affirmative action kind of stuff. Anti-diversity hiring. House buying is also consumption sold as investment. Actually, I'm going to say that. I think he means build density, not built. This seems realistic. Alright, well that's Twitter. Hello, 6 viewers. I believe anyone can access that feed, by the way. Yeah, the only thing wrong with that feed for other people is it doesn't have my cell phone in it. Well, I'll just add myself, I think. Members. Oh, I button. Add people. Curi 32. Done. Okay, there. Yeah, I think seeing my own retweets in the feed is fine for me. I think that I formatted this post before. Maybe it was for FI. No? Wait, and no one quoted that, or is there a problem? Anything wrong with me using quote marks? I thought someone like fully quoted Didi's post. Wait, what the fuck? Was the word and being a now it works. Wait, Justin totally has this in... Oh, it's because it's quoted. I know what it is. The comment headers are unquoted text, where I actually just want any text. And now it works. Whatever, I'm just gonna get the original and fix it up. So delete the end. I don't know why he double quoted it and put it in quote marks with a period on the end after the quote. Like, this is, the formatting is a little weird, but close enough. Okay, I now have a spare copy of it at the bottom. And I can start going through this. I admire Ayn Rand, but not as a philosopher. That's which. I changed the order again. Alright. Oops. I haven't played Overwatch for like a month, but I plan to continue playing. I think 222 will make the game better for me. Personally, I'm not convinced it's a good idea for pro level, but I don't have that strong of an opinion. If the issue is just to fix goats at pro level, there are other things they could have done. For example, a 2 healer maximum. So you can play whatever you want, it's just you can't have more than 2 healers. That would have been a more flexible way to do Overwatch League without goats in it. But for me, playing in Diamond or whatever, I think I'll get better quality games where people stop flexing to a role they don't want to play. A lot of people think we need 222, and then they'll play a hero they're bad at and throw the game by being terrible at the hero they're playing. If they just play a hero that they can actually play, even if we had a bad team comp, we would have been better off. It would have been more fun. I don't like it when people on my team are like really incompetent at the hero they're playing. I especially don't like it when people play tank because they think we need a tank, which we kind of do. But then one, they're terrible at it, and two, they switch off to DPS in the middle, and then all of a sudden we have no tank, and they kind of throw the game. So we will no longer have our main tank swap to DPS ever. So that seems nice. We could still end up with 2 off tanks, but I think it'll be an improvement. So yeah, I think the game quality will be better for me in general. Also, in terms of queue times, I'm fine with playing Ana primarily. So I don't need to wait for the DPS queue time. So other people can deal with that. I also did not like flexing to Orisa. I think she's kind of boring. And there were games where I felt like I should flex to Orisa or I have a significantly lower chance of losing the game. And I didn't like that. Whereas with 222, I'm not going to be in a position where I have to flex to a hero I don't want to play in order to have a better chance to win the game. I think that's not going to be a significant issue anymore. It's definitely going to make the game easier to balance in the long run, in addition to getting rid of goats right now, because there are fewer possible team comps. There's less options, fewer options. So Blizzard has less to worry about. So they just forced Brig to be a normal healer more than she was before. And every hero they make is going to clearly fit into one of the roles, and the heroes only have to be balanced against the other heroes in the roles. You don't have to worry about, is this DPS character worth picking over a third healer? Do the healers do enough damage while also healing to just replace DPS? Is that better? Blizzard no longer has to worry about that stuff. So they can just make healers be really strong, and every team always has two, so it's fair. Like, it doesn't actually matter if healers are better than DPS when you're stuck with two of each, no matter what. Dee sort of says this. He pretends she's like a psychologist or something, but he's not honest about it. Like, I'll get to it later. I was checking whether this was like real praise, and it's not. She did a lot more than stress that, she made arguments. Her innovation was not to emphasize something, it was to actually argue things. Arguing and emphasizing are different. She didn't just say, oh, this area needs more attention, look at this, guys, and like point at it. That would be stressing. She didn't do the equivalent of italics. She argued the case. And then this point, defending them in terms of efficiency only concede much of the opponent's case. Okay, first of all, she wouldn't say the whole of. That's ridiculous. But anyways, so here, this is an actual argument that she did make, and it's true. But this is not a major innovation. This is like a minor point within the area. So yeah, everything Dee says is not very friendly. There was no good part where he was actually nice to her. Yeah, like this stuff, this is philosophy, you know. Like she's saying here, the issue is that moral philosophy matters and we shouldn't just ignore it. She's doing philosophy work, in the way that Dee has normally used the word philosophy. No, I have not. Oh, it's a paid podcast. 2013. Oh, they do Spinoza, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, Craig, Heidegger. People who do that kind of podcast, in general, do not know anything about objectives or not much. It'll be very superficial and it will be, I expect, hostile to Ayn Rand. Like, I'd be very surprised if an objectivist made this episode with like a neutral to Heidegger title. In fact, we can see the preview. This is totally like semi-friendly to Heidegger. It's not like hostile to Heidegger. So no objectivist would write this. So I don't normally have much interest in non-objectivists getting Rand wrong. Is there a particular reason you would recommend it? Wait, oh, they're actually literally flaming her right here in the description. They're calling her a parrot and saying she just ignores other arguments. Then they call her a Nietzschean. That's intended to attack her. That's a flame. Trying to associate her with Nietzsche is a smear. That's a standard one they're doing on purpose. What does learn more? Oh, see, they're only doing it. They don't even want to do Ayn Rand. They're just doing it because of listener requests. Rand is popular and has fans, so people ask for information about her. But they hate Rand and don't actually want to think about her, which explains the quality of the thinking they do about her. They're not actually open-minded about this. Like they went in hostile and biased, and then they flamed her in the description. See, they call it frustrated kvetching. Like they do not like it. They're not interested. They're not trying to understand what her point was. They're just hating on it. It's not going to make objectivism fans happy, I can tell you. Right, so they're flaming Ayn Rand. They're not open to debate. They chose completely the wrong essay, by the way, for what they're doing and not being very familiar with objectivism. That was a terrible choice of essay. That's partially hard to blame them for, but they could have chosen For the New Intellectual to look at, which is supposed to be an introductory book. Or they could have found out from a knowledgeable objectivist what they should read. However, it's possible that objectivists would have recommended that chapter to them. Like I wouldn't, but other objectivists might have. Also, for doing detailed textual analysis, a podcast is a terrible format. They should have written it down if they were actually serious about doing criticism. They have this written thing here, but it doesn't quote Rand. They're not responding to quotes here. and then responding to quotes verbally in the podcast is going to be very hard to do well. He rolled his eyes at the fountainhead. That's a really bad sign about a person. Like, it means they have a bad sense of life, a bad attitude to life. Peacock's podcast is okay. It has some errors, and he's just not nearly as good as Rand. But he's going through all this stuff, but he's not asking questions. He's not getting critical feedback about his misconceptions about objectivism from objectivists. The paywall doesn't really matter. I would pay $2 if I wanted to listen to it. It's just that I don't want to listen to people who are hostile to Rand and are not open to discussion. There's no way to change their mind. There's no way to correct them on their errors. Like, what I would do if someone was actually interested in discussion is go through the podcast until the first significant error that they make, and then tell them the error, and then see what they do about it, see if they're willing to change their mind, whatever. But these people are not going to do that. You can also see that they don't have a forum. They don't have their own forum, and they don't recommend some other forum. Unless there's one on Facebook, but those, I don't even count those. They don't even have a subreddit they use as like a terrible forum. This so-called blog seems to primarily just be linking to other stuff rather than actual like articles. Just like all of this stuff is their audio content they don't actually write. Anyway, there are plenty of people who know little about objectivism and hate it, and there's no particular reason to be interested in them. In these ones. I think podcasts like that are very typical things that are making the world worse by pretending that there's intellectual activity going on, and they're giving people a fake outlet to be smart and clever and whatever, but they're not actually critical thinkers. They're not open to ideas, very in a very unbounded way. Like there are severe limits on what they'll think about or what they'll consider, and they're actually helping spread certain mainstream ideas and uh, promote the status quo in various ways, but they're pretending not to. And so you get a lot of people who want to learn things and whatever, and they find stuff like that, and it discourages them from the right paths and the right ideas, and tries to keep them in the walled garden of certain normal ideas. And they set they give intellectuals a bad name or bad reputation to some extent by not being better than they are. Like they're kind of saying this is what an intellectual is, and then they're not very good. They're not very open to criticism, and people see that, and a lot of people think, being an intellectual doesn't work. Intellectuals are dumb, and they sort of give up on the concept of an intellectual just because they've seen so many bad intellectuals. No, the people with professional backgrounds are in general less honest about Rand and less willing to approach her. The schools indoctrinate people to be hostile to objectivism and to never be willing to consider it. It's amateurs where you can get a more fair treatment. Like their professional training makes them worse thinkers. They were indoctrinated with stuff like Kant and respect for Heidegger. Yeah, people think that they're like an intellectual because they listen to Sam Harris and watch TED Talks. And Pell is just like a less popular version of that, but it's in the same genre. There's very few like actual serious philosophers in the world, but it's a crowded field in terms of people pretending to be that. So it makes it hard to find the good ones. And a lot of people like look for a while because they want to find good philosophy, but they give up. How do you spell Kelly? Okay, it does have the E before the Y. 5 notifications. Oh, okay. This is the Sam Harris Reddit. I'll provide the link. But the answer to the question was apparently no. Sam Harris never wrote any serious criticism of objectivism. He did, on the other hand, write extremely stupid anti-capitalist stuff. I'll provide a link. I have two other posts revealing how bad Harris is. If you click on previous and then previous again, you'll get to the other two posts. I keep writing Rand. Refreshing is somewhat faint praise. Like, it's just sort of like she wasn't an SJW. It's nice to have an intellectual, a writer, that kind of person who's not an SJW. I mean, that's true and that's good, but it's not like major praise. It has nothing to do with her actual, accomplishments and merits, or not much to do with them. Like, it's such a little thing in the context of what she is. Right? Inspiring. Inspiring is also a very secondary thing. Oh wait, he gives an example that he thinks is supposed to cover this. It's not, but he does have one example. I have that open in a browser tab. I think I only watched the video. It would have dramatic practical implications. That part's true. Not in like most of life, I guess, but sometimes it would. You know, you could definitely have dramatic situations. Let's see. Alright, spelled that right. The shit Dee Dee says about Rand is worse than that podcast thing I was looking at earlier. Like, he's being more hostile than those people were. There are plenty of Rand detractors who don't say anything as nasty as what Dee Dee said. Thanks. Let's see. 2652 words, and the original thing is like 350. So I've written like 2300. I also added that Rand paragraph, so a bit less. 2200 or so. Was it triple dash? Yeah, it was triple dash. Is that what it's like on Reddit? Triple dash. Alright, I'll leave triple dash. Yes, I have been on voice chat on the Discord with someone while gaming with them before. It works fine, just like Mumble or whatever. If you want to save audio chats, you need to set up like recording software on your computer or something. Like the best way to do it would just be to stream while you're gaming, I think, and save your stream. That's what I'd do if I wanted to save it, probably. Yes, Kyle. That's what I'm doing. Alright, well, let's see if I spelled Parthenon right. Yay. This is chapter 1, right? Yeah, there's 2 a little later. Someone said Dee Dee was wrong about this and gave some quotes. Was that Justin or Alan or someone else? See if it's in here. Wait, the word tradition's not here at all? Oh, institution? Alright, here we go. Discord works okay and it was easy. And what else would I choose? No one would join IRC. I don't have strong opinions about Discord. It's not amazing or anything. I don't care that much. It's popular and people will join it some. Skype is not very good for chat rooms like this. It would not be suitable for just anyone can join and chat and whatever. If you search my Twitter and the FI archives, you will find some stuff about Bitcoin. Possibly also my blog. Comments somewhere. Also, if you search the Twitter history of Patio 11, you will find Bitcoin criticism. Well, Bitcoin doesn't work well. It has very low transaction volume, and there are technological problems and security problems, and we need like a well-established money system that's been tested and tried, and like the technology's not ready yet to actually take over the whole economy. Like, Bitcoin hasn't shown that in practice it works for much of anything. It needs to work its way up and have a bunch of success, or some other superior computer currency could work its way up. But none of them have actually gotten past the point of basically being a joke that's going to end up getting shut down by regulators for violating a bunch of banking rules. They facilitate crime and money laundering, and they're not actually very useful for regular commerce. Like, I'm not adamantly opposed to computer currencies in theory, but they're a long ways off of working well enough and being reliable enough, having the code security vetted well enough, etc. And there's going to have to be like a long transition period before you would get there. Like with credit cards. When credit cards started, we still had cash, and people mostly paid with cash, and they would do some of their payments with credit cards. You wouldn't want to just jump to credit cards. There has to be like decades during which people get more comfortable with credit cards and use them more and more. And we still have cash. It's not credit card only. Like, I personally mostly use credit cards, but credit cards have transaction costs, and I sometimes use cash to avoid paying extra fees. The transaction costs on credit cards are around 3%, which is actually meaningful. We wouldn't want like no option, but a 3% transaction cost, that would be bad. Bitcoin's also like really far from user friendly enough, and also having like working phones or whatever is not universal enough for Bitcoin to replace cash. Like, that's not just an issue of poor people or whatever. Like, even for me, if my phone broke, I would still want to be able to buy things while my phone was broken. For example, a new phone or some food. So having cash as a backup is really good. So in my opinion, there's no real downside to going back to gold. It would be like cash, but better. We'd still have cash, by the way. It'd be a gold standard, not, exclusively gold. But it would just be stop printing more paper money. And once you have a fixed supply of paper money, then you can connect it to gold and have it be redeemable in gold. And that's a reasonably minor, safe adjustment that's just going back to a previous system that worked well. And it doesn't prevent you from cryptocurrencies or whatever expanding in the future and actually being useful later. Like, I'm not against Bitcoin as an option that exists. I mean, I think it's bad. I don't like to use it. I don't use it. But, people should be free to use bad options. Although it is facilitating crime a bit too much. So that's pretty sketchy. And there's significant amounts of fraud going on with Tether and stuff. And there's like kind of a boiler room effect where people are getting like old people and clueless people to invest in it in order to drive up the price, in order to make it look like a good investment, in order to get more people to invest, kind of like a Ponzi scheme. There's some of that going on, which is bad. There's a problem there, but sure, like in theory, you can set up some computer currency and it could play a larger role in the future. But as like the single primary currency, we need currently dollars, and I think dollars on the gold standard would be an improvement. I don't know whether to hyphenate second-handedness. I don't have a strong opinion about that. This is not coherent enough for me to follow what they're trying to say, I don't think. Like, prime is defined as an attribute of numbers. Specifically integers, I think. Or even just positive integers. I've never thought about negative prime numbers, and they'd be divisible by both 1 and -1, so you'd have too many factors. And if there's any sort of way of dealing with real numbers as being prime, I'm not familiar with it. It wouldn't really make sense, because you can divide... Like, the whole point is dividing into whole numbers, I think. But yeah, I think prime has to do with positive integers. And I don't know how... That doesn't directly apply to molecules. I don't know why new encryption or new proof of work would... I mean, those things could help something, but they would not solve Bitcoin's main problems. It certainly wouldn't solve problems like that after you buy something, the purchase can be undone if enough miners decide to undo it, or whoever controls enough computational power. And it wouldn't solve the low transaction limit of Bitcoin. And it wouldn't solve the transaction fees for doing Bitcoin trades. They're not actually free. Uh, no, you cannot reverse gold or cash payments in general. Like, if you hand someone money and now they have that money, you can't reverse it. I mean, you could point a gun at them and take the money back, but other than that, now they have the money. Like, once it's in their hand, it's theirs. Whereas with Bitcoin, you cannot go to the grocery store and buy stuff with Bitcoin and then leave with the stuff safely, because an hour later, maybe the transaction will get undone, and then the person will have left with the food, but also keep their money. So Bitcoin's design is unsuitable for normal use of retail stores. Credit card payments are only reversed by credit card companies in special circumstances, like they keep control over it. They're a trusted authority. You are trusting, or the merchant is trusting, the credit card company to have reasonable policies and whatever. So there's like a human element to credit cards, um, which is different than just whoever has computational power. Anyone can fuck with your transactions. Whereas with credit cards, it's like this company that has built up a reputation, and their future financial success depends on their good behavior. They have some power over what's going on, but you can switch to one of their competitors if you don't trust them. Yeah, we don't transferring gold or significant amounts of cash over long distances, and sometimes even short distances, definitely has costs. That's not free. However, that problem is largely solved with checks and credit cards, and PayPal and Venmo and Apple Pay and so on, wire transfers, Western Union, etc. So the point of Bitcoin is to be like a better credit card. So you don't have to carry much cash with you. I don't see like major advantages today. Okay, well, if the problem you're trying to solve is credit card companies mistreating their customers and making bad judgments about what's fraud or not, that is not a problem that I currently have or consider significant. But I agree that it's, more than nothing. But it seems like a lot less of a problem than adopting Bitcoin would be. I find credit card companies quite consumer friendly. By the way, PayPal is bad at detecting fraud and has unreasonable judgments or arbitrations or whatever quite often, I believe. And I've actually I got scammed for like $50 and PayPal wouldn't give me my money back when it was just a blatant scam. I partly did it because I knew it might be a scam, but I was curious what would happen. And I expected PayPal to give me my money back, and they did not. So I just credit card charged back PayPal because I used my credit card, and the credit card company said, sure, here's your money back. So I don't know what the fuck PayPal was thinking, but I've read a lot of stuff about how they're really unreliable and random about who they side with. Whereas credit card companies just tend to side with credit card holders. And they're very friendly to the customer so that people don't get screwed. The fact that there's fraud, um, just because the burden doesn't fall on me directly, it does make credit cards more expensive. Like, that's part of why there's an approximately 3% transaction cost involved with credit cards. It's actually less than that because they give you points back. It's like for using a credit card, it's like a 3% transaction fee. Like, that's what PayPal and Stripe charge. However, the credit card is then giving you back 1% cash back, and in some cases more, and they're giving you some perks. So, like, you can imagine credit cards that didn't give you points, didn't give you any kind of cash back, and then the credit card transaction fees would be a bit lower. So that the real transaction fees on credit cards are more like 1.5% or something. No, Bitcoin would take ongoing maintenance and development effort and whatever. It's not a one-time cost to deal with Bitcoin's system and yeah, maintain the software, keep everything working, monitor everything works right, deal with problems as they come up. Bitcoin would be an ongoing source of new problems. It wouldn't just be adopt it once and it works perfectly forever. I'm not saying the rate of problems would be especially huge. It might be. Like, I think Bitcoin is shoddy software, so, but regardless, like, it's not just like free to use forever with no problems. Credit cards, by the way, have ongoing costs of just running the credit card businesses or whatever. It's not just fraud. They're definitely not free. Is Bitcoin uses a bunch of software clients that can have bugs and other problems. But Bitcoin has a complex technological design, and like we would run into problems like the more people use it, the more transactions would have to get processed by the Bitcoin system, and then we would find that current Bitcoin software is unable to deal with those transactions fast enough. And so transaction fees would get really high. And I'm sure other problems would come up if Bitcoin was used more extensively. Also, I think that having so much stuff done with credit cards where it can be reversed according to human judgment is actually basically a benefit. And it's the same with like checks and banking in general. Um, Overall, I think dealing with fraud or whatever is worth it for human judgment being able to fix errors and problems. Like you don't want to lose $90,000 because you wrote an extra zero and you meant to pay 10,000, you paid 100,000. If you do that today with the bank system or credit cards or whatever, that can be fixed. With Bitcoin, it could not be fixed, and so you're gonna have uh, a lot of errors that will really hurt people. It'll be dangerous. That would be an ongoing source of headaches for people. So you always have to be really careful, and you can't fix mistakes very well. I mean, I guess if you're dealing with a reputable store, they could send you money back. Like their customer service department could do a Bitcoin refund, but if they told you to go fuck yourself, you couldn't do anything with Bitcoin. Maybe you could try to call the police or something, but the current system is better at that kind of thing. You can have escrow mechanisms, but those are transaction costs. You're adding transaction costs to be careful. So you're like, this is risky, so we have to be extra careful. So we're going to have extra layers of whatever in the way of the transaction. There's also other purposes, like that's not a standard escrow thing. But anyways, you can have mechanisms of some sort. But the more safety mechanisms you add, the less convenient it is. And there could still be errors. Because the system is fundamentally designed for, like, once the money moves, it's moved, and there's no authority, not even the government, who can undo that. Which is, in theory, I'm happy for a system like that to exist. I think that should be an option for some transactions, but I think you shouldn't use that for most of your transactions. Most of the time, in daily life, it's better to have a safer mechanism where human judgment can overrule errors. And then for specific transactions, where for some reason you actually want this is absolutely final, no takebacks, you can do that occasionally. Like, that is a good thing to exist sometimes, but not usually. One of the times it's good is if you're worried that the credit card companies or whatever might reverse their transaction when you don't want them to. If you're worried that their fraud detection or whatever will undo a transaction you think shouldn't be undone, then you could use Bitcoin or whatever in that specific case, but you could still use regular banking and credit cards for your grocery shopping and your Amazon purchases and other stuff like that. Bitcoin is also more worth dealing with for high stakes transactions. If it's going to be like one big transaction, then it's more worth dealing with a big hassle. Bitcoin, by the way, though, currently, like, the value is too unstable, and the mechanisms to get money into and out of Bitcoin are way too unreliable and shoddy. So for the purpose of big transactions, Bitcoin is actually a problem because you don't want to invest a bunch of money in Bitcoin that might just drop 5% today or something. Or you might have trouble getting your money back out from an exchange into dollars again. And even if you can, there's probably significant fees of putting the money in and out, so you're tempted to leave it in Bitcoin, but then you have a lot more risk of the price going up or down. %3 cashback on groceries, right? They're relying on you buying some other stuff, and even if they're basically break even, that's okay if they're break even on some accounts and making money on other accounts, it's okay overall. I totally forgot how to do markdown coloring, by the way. I need to color a particular quote. It's this quote. I swear I saved this somewhere. Okay, this might be it. 2150. Alright, it's marked down and it had colored quotes, so let's see what I did. Oh, it's 2 spaces. You do space space div class equal green. There's probably a reason for that space also before the last div. Anyway. Okay, that might work. If that doesn't work, I'll fix it after I put this post up. Oh, and also I'm going to change the color to blue-green. Is it chapter 7? I don't remember. If it's not 7, it's like 8 probably, or 6. Let's see. It is 8. I don't think I'm going to use the full quote again. There's some better way of doing this, but this should be good enough. Markdown supports a better way of doing this, but I'm not sure if the specific version of Markdown I'm using on my blog actually supports it. I'm trying to find my notes about this. Alright, so there's more I could say, but I think this is reasonably self-contained. It's all in like the same style. It fits together pretty well. So I may or may not do some other stuff later. Oh, look at Justin's post. Is it possible to reply to this stuff or is it locked? Oh yeah, it's 2 years old. So I would reply to this guy and tell him that permit does not mean what he thinks it means, and link him to blog posts with more detail. However, Reddit doesn't let you comment on threads over 6 months old. So I will not be replying. I could PM him, but I don't really want to. That's like a different kind of thing. He posted this publicly. I'd be happy to respond to him publicly, but I can't. Anyone else is welcome to PM him, though. Like, feel free to send him my blog post or Justin's or whatever. A stream link. Like, I'm happy for other people to spread the word and stuff. I just personally doubt he's like that interested. It'd be okay to PM him, but I think like a public reply makes more sense, but it's not available. Right, Justin post. I'm probably gonna end stream after this. I'm getting hungry. And then later, I'm probably gonna do some software work rather than do a second stream in the evening. I should link to my own stream. Did that get posted on FI somewhere? Did I newsletter it? Here we go. My newsletter had a bunch of stuff.
Go back to this.
Okay, and then I think I saved this. Yeah, good enough. Okay, back to Justin. I need to add a timestamp to this, which I will figure out after the stream is done. Actually, I can figure it out right now because I started doing local recording for the first time. Wait, no, I don't think you can open the videos while they're recording. I'll check. No, it just crashed. Okay, yeah, I could record in a different format, but I just picked MP4, and it has to finalize the file before it works. And I don't want to split the file, so I'm just gonna do the timestamp later. Alright, Justin. Okay, that's good. The Zoom is helping you. By the way, here's my Zoom. I don't know if you saw it earlier, but I just hold Control Option and it does this. And I can use my scroll wheel to make it bigger or smaller. And I can configure the size of this in the settings if I want to. This is significantly bigger than the original rectangle. But I can do this. Alright, disclaimered. By the way, have you guys noticed any difference with my new mic stand on my desk? Instead of the old one that was like a big tripod? Yeah, they're also contextualized or qualified or whatever at the time he says them. Like, even if you ignore the introductory framing of his hostility to Rand, they're still all kind of screwed up just on their own, in their own right. Right, DD will not debate, and he will not publicly write an anti-Rand article. And I talked about in a previous stream that just because it's a private reply, he's writing for the public. Like, he's writing that the same as he would if it was a public thing. It's not like he's being casual and careless because it was private. Like, I don't think it being private is an excuse. That's all. He was writing in like serious mode. The way he wrote it is very similar to how he would write an FI post if he still wrote discussion emails. Like, it's not as polished as a book, but his emails were uh things that he could take responsibility for. I think I'm gonna leave this post and do an editing pass on a different day that's not today before I put it up. I think I usually hyphenate it. Well, the alternative to a hyphen is a space, not single word. Right, so I didn't think this was okay as far as it goes. I commented on that in my essay already. And yeah, he's contradicting himself some. Okay, I'll hyphenate it. I'm pretty sure I've looked that up before. Well, it's not that she convinced me. I want to write it the way she would write it because it's her terminology. Yeah, this is fair. I didn't go into like how fucking flamey some of his flames were. There's a serious contrast between how he's like pretending to be writing this dispassionate analysis with no bias and being even-handed and whatever. And then on the other hand, some of the flames he chooses are really fucking strong. Like Rand attracts a lot of hateful comments, but DDs are they actually stand out in the field of Rand hateful comments as being particularly nasty compared to a lot of the typical stuff. Especially the stuff that's pretending to be at all even-handed. Because there are people who are just like, well, she's an idiot. And, they won't really talk about it more. But if the people who actually pretend to have an informed opinion and to write something at all serious, it's rarely as nasty as DD's in terms of just the strength of how strong the insults are. But he has readily available access to this information. He just doesn't want to talk to those people. He wants to hate Rand and them for similar reasons with similar quality of reasoning. People like me and Justin could be asked directly or through an intermediary. So he did do a lot of the work to understand objectivism, and he used to understand objectivism better. Like he's forgotten stuff or suppressed the knowledge or something. But like he's changed his opinion of objectivism. It's not just like he's a newbie who's ignorant. He liked Rand more. And part of why he comes off as somewhat convincing is that he actually knows a fair amount about objectivism. I talked about that before. BRB. Wait, what the fuck? Somehow it clicked on the wrong scene in OBS. Like it misread where my mouse was or something when I was trying to unmute. Fortunately, I previously disabled the other one so that it wouldn't actually show anything if I switched to that scene. This is very unclear. It works better if you actually look up the etymologies of multiple words, like allow, that are related. Because people will look up permit in the dictionary, and they'll see allow, and they'll be like, well, if you don't do anything, you're allowing it to happen, even if guns pointed at your head. So then if you actually look up what allow means and where it comes from, here's what allow means. OED, first definition. And people don't know this, because this is not the standard usage today. That reminds me. It's not 60, it's, was it 1964? So 50 years would be, oh, 1962. You got 7 years for 2012, so 57. Yeah, I noticed this too. Like, it wasn't vaguely, she specifically said one. I mean, she doesn't give the full detail of how to analyze that, but it's not vague either. Yes, the primary issue here is to save yourself, to help yourself, to protect yourself from the irrational culture. It's what should you do in an irrational society? Not to fix the culture, that's not the primary goal, although it will help with that. The primary goal is to live your own life and not be corrupted. And to do that, you need to disagree with things you disagree with, not be tyrannized over, and be this helpless, powerless, cowering ball. You can do that if you're in a violent society where you actually don't have a choice. But if it's just an irrational society like the US today, where there's a lot of irrational ideas, but you have, a reasonable amount of freedom to speak your mind without being punched or shot, then you will be better off if you say what you think, and not just in your head to yourself, but out loud. It will help you live life your way and see things the way you want to, instead of having more standard ideas and perspectives creep into your head bit by bit until you're really corrupted. The issue of being a childhood, is awkward because it's not an emergency situation like a lifeboat or a gun pointed at you, but it is sort of a special exception, and it is temporary. But it lasts for years and years. It sucks that children are in this temporary situation for many years consecutively. And there's something bad going on there. And the ethics of emergency chapter, I think, doesn't really address that. Although I have not read it recently. Yeah, sometimes if you reveal your real values, someone might like them. You might make a friend. You might get interaction around your real values instead of your fake one. You can find out if that can exist or if there's any options there. It might not be as bad as you think, and if it is as bad as you think, it's good to find that out instead of it just being your speculation. You can be more confident if you've tried it a bunch of times and seen for yourself how rare it is that people agree with your values. Also, even if something bad happens, you can feel better about yourself and less guilty for shutting up in the future after you had that bad experience. And you're saying, I'm not a coward, I just don't want that particular bad event to happen again. There's a real risk here that I'm not making up. Like, you can be a lot more confident that you're not making up the danger if you've had bad events in the past when you've tried to speak up. So even then, there's benefits to something bad happening to get more clarity for you. And it can help clarify what kind of thing you're afraid of, because some people don't speak up because um they're worried that a girl won't like them, and they just want to pander to all the women so they can have sex. And that's a completely different fear than, say, being scared that you'll get punched if you wear a MAGA hat. And you should know clearly for yourself like what it is you're scared of, and don't like mix those together and fool yourself. And so if it actually happens that you lose a potential lay because you expressed a value that she didn't like, and then you don't want to do that again, you should at least know who you are, what's going on, instead of pretending that it's a different type of concern. Right, I don't wear MAGA hats. I've never bought one. If I had zero fear of violence, I think that I would have gotten one. But it's just not fucking worth dealing with for me, I think. Which sucks. Like, it really shouldn't be that way. Right, I've been in proximity to Antifa violence. I stayed indoors. Just entirely, I didn't want to go near it. Like, give authorization or consent. If someone points a gun at you, you're not giving them authorization or consent. They're fucking taking it by violence. It's a different thing. It's not given. Right. Don't give people a green light to tear down your values, including implicitly. There are situations where if you don't say anything, you're giving a green light by implication. But the situations where you shouldn't speak up, like with a gun, are not those cases. I don't really like this introductory part of the sentence, especially breaking the third wall or whatever, bringing the reader into it. I find it kind of weird and like it wasn't really led up to, it just seemed out of the blue. I think it's trying to do some sort of writing technique, and I don't know why, and it seems unnecessary. Like, you could just replace this whole thing with so, comma. Fraud's not a great word, by the way, because it can be mixed up with like force or fraud, like actually violating people's rights. And he's not accusing her of violating people's rights. He's accusing her more of being dishonest. And people do say being a fraud, like it has more than one meaning. But the double meaning of the word is like a little bit confusing here. Um, because specifically DD doesn't use the word fraud, and then it has a meaning where DD's not saying that, and it wouldn't be fair. But it also has a meaning that basically he's implying. I don't think Justin ever specifically said what meaning he meant. Like, you can figure it out if you understand what's being said. But if you're a bit confused, then it could be more confusing. This not is a little bit buried in the middle of the sentence and easy to miss. It's kind of a long sentence, and I like was not reading every word, and I missed the not, and then I was confused, and I went back. It's such a key word. I think it would deserve italics if you weren't going to reword it all, and that would be a little better. I think it's just an ad hominem. Yeah. By the way, this comment will confuse people who don't know a lot about objectivism and stuff, but like I get it. You partially explain in the next two sentences. How come the word culture starts with cult? Is all culture a cult? Question mark, question mark, question mark. There's probably some root word where they're related, although there might not be. Latin cultus, care, labor, cultivation, culture, worship, reverence. Okay, so it's sort of mixed up various parts of society, including religion. It's sort of like cultivation, like a civilized society. But it also includes worship and reverence, so you can get to the cult aspect there. Hey, you picked the same point to like not really comment as I did. Like that line, it was just like, does it even require explaining? Maybe she just got lucky by picking Mises to parrot, and Mises did the good thinking. Because if you were just picking like schools of economics, you could like divide it into like, I don't know, 10 choices and then get lucky. And that would actually be like a realistic way to get lucky. I don't know what you mean, but I think it's some sort of sarcasm because they don't, which I think you know, but I don't really get your point. Oh, right. Okay, yes. She sets herself apart from Mises, Hayek, or whatever by saying some other things that do not appeal to all the Austrians, so she can't just be copying what Austrians know. That refutes the theory that she got lucky in that particular way. DD, like, he mentioned stuff that could be taken to refer to second-handedness, he just never said the term. He was very non-specific. DD certainly knows about second-handedness. Some people maybe don't, although that the people from the podcast earlier apparently read Fountainhead instead of Atlas Shrugged, so that they'd have some familiarity with Rand, or like the one guy did at least. Oh man, DD has you going on this big confusing tangent with his bullshit. People are not good at resisting DD's rhetorical tricks. He is a good polemicist, to use his words. I think Rip is a bit extreme to say, just because DD can trip you up sometimes. And it's not like you're even agreeing with him, it's just like, a milder version of tripped up than actually thinking he was right. I think it's unwise to exaggerate and claim it's the whole of their case. If you deny one thing, then literally you're not conceding the whole of their case. You're only conceding part of their case. Everything else would be part but not all of their case. The efficiency thing was a part of their case if it was relevant at all. So the whole thing is just, it's straight up an exaggeration and it's not worth defending. Rand would never say that. You don't need to defend it. Rand wouldn't have said it. It's just Dee Dee's straw man. It can be like most of the case depending on the context or whatever. You're sort of arguing it'd be an ineffective counterargument in these cases, which is true, but you're sort of mixing ineffective up with entirely ineffective because of the word whole. Whereas it would be like more like mostly ineffective, but it would have more than zero effectiveness, even if you do this kind of thing. Well, setting aside the counterproductiveness aspect, like it could be net below zero effectiveness, like worse than nothing because of what you implicitly concede, but the actual argument part that you're making regarding efficiency would be more than zero narrowly construed. This exclamation point, like intended, it's kind of weird. Maybe just put italics or bold on the but or something would have been better. This footnote should say in the footnote what you're quoting, in my opinion. Second one as well. It'd also be better without like double quotes with double quotes inside them. And I think it'd be better with like actual block quoting, like normal block quotes. Because we're used to that from your post, and then all of a sudden we have all this text that doesn't look like a quote, except it is. There's also a space here for some reason. Anyway, so Rand's actual position is clear. Dee Dee was just picking on a particular wording. Alright, well, that's the end. Later, guys.